everybody, you're very welcome to Magical Ireland with May and Secret Ireland Tours. Tonight our guest is Courtney McInvale. She's from New England area, actually Connecticut. She is the owner of Seaside Shadows Tour Company. She does haunted tours, haunted walks. She actually takes boats as well. She's a very interesting person. She's had a very interesting life so far, and we spent an hour having a chat with her, and she told us all about what she's been up to, her time in Ireland. She's a historian, she is an author, she has so many irons in the fire. Fantastic chat with her. So hang with us and have a listen, and we hope you enjoy it. Courtney, it is fantastic that you're here with me and that you've spent this hour. You've taken it out of your busy time because I know you're very busy, but I love that you have the hour to talk to me and to us and to all the people that are interested in you and your life. And, let's talk about, people see you with your tour company, they see you at power meets and they see you at different paranormal events. And some of them would love to know, like, where you come from and, where your when your psychic abilities kind of show themselves, and, generally your adventures and all of that. So can you fill us in on?
Well, thank you, May, for having me. I love talking to you, so it's no big deal to carve out time when you want to chat about Irish things. I'm 100% always in. But for my background, obviously I have a very Irish family, but I am from Connecticut. So I was raised in a town called East Hampton, which was at the time like a really small town. And my mother raised us Irish Catholic. So we were always, a healthy amount of superstitious, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
My father was from sort of a Scottish background and down in Georgia. And so he was also really into, horror and the supernatural and Stephen King books and things like that. So from both ends of my parents, I definitely had exposure to the unknown, but not in an overbearing way. And in the house we lived in, we had a lot of like sort of unexplained happenings throughout the years. And my parents would just tell me that old houses do strange things and that this was totally normal. And, for a lot of folks it is. And I live in an old house now and they do strange things. But as I got older, the activity sort of started to really escalate. And some of it didn't seem as positive as before.
Yeah.
And so when I was a teenager, and there was a lot of changes in my family with my dad's health and my parents. And so around that time, that's when we noticed the change in the unexplained activity. And so my mom called a couple named Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are, really kind of the household names now because
Yeah.
of the Conjuring films and things like that. But at the time, they lived in the state with us. They also, were profoundly practicing Catholics. And my mom really liked that and felt like they might be somebody who could come into the house and sort of see what was going on.
Yeah.
And so Ed at that time was sick. So Lorraine really took the reins. And she came into the house and really felt like we were living in a train station for
Really?
spirits, and that, some, benign human ones were there, potentially even helping watch over us. But she also felt like some really negative ones were there as well. So her and the team conducted an exorcism of my childhood home when I was 15. And when that concluded, Lorraine, who is a psychic herself, sort of spoke to my mother and to myself and my sisters. And she told us that throughout our lives, we would notice that we might have an increase in the paranormal around us. And we might be hypervigilant to it, but also our exposure to it would make it more attracted to us. And I was kind of embarrassed by this. I lived in a small town and I was a teenager and I didn't want any of it. But she even told me at that time that I could see them, but I thought I had just seen them because I lived in a house with spirits. So I went on with my life through college and work and tried to pretend that this was not, the life that I was pursuing, because at that time it was the occult and it's not like we are now where we're so open about it.
And can I ask you, Courtney, were any of your parents or your grandparents, did they have any of these psychic abilities or gifts,
Yeah. So I think I think honestly, both my parents had different gifts, but they didn't like really talk about it. And now people talk about it more. My mom, who's still with us, she'll, occasionally admit that she has memories of seeing things or these
Uh-huh.
dreams or hearing things, but like they always kind of scared her and she didn't want to project that onto her children
Yeah.
or feed us any thoughts or anything that weren't, she didn't want us to like be constantly, thinking that ghosts were like right around the corner.
Yeah. Yeah.
My dad, he always had this interest in like sort of the ethereal. And I found out after his passing that that was kind of like a family gene, and that like his mother and my cousins and his siblings would often listen to like these radio shows about the paranormal
Uh-huh.
and go to haunted places and try to explore. So I do think that these genetic components were absolutely there. My dad was a prankster. Sometimes he'd take us on a walk in the woods and like touch me on the shoulder and be like, "Oh, what was that?" Like that sort of thing. So I would say they were open to it, but I think they had more than they let on
Yeah.
because, like I said, until very recent history, it was considered the occult, and
Yeah.
people would
People.
kind of consider you mentally unstable.
Yeah.
And, and with holding down jobs and raising a family, you don't put that out there,
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you can. Now it's like everyone has a story, but for a long while it wasn't like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then how did your friends going to school, like in, high school and beyond, how did they, or did you ever let them know?
So a couple of my friends knew, like my really close friends, especially as I got older, who might have like sleepover parties at my house and stuff. And they would notice that like things moved or lights flickered. Occasionally, they might even see a person or something. And initially they would get pretty scared, but then they were also like, well, I'm not going to leave you, I'm going to protect you.
Yeah.
But they were very, and I would always say to them, just like keep it between us, and they would. But a lot of them to this day, like they're always like sending me memories of like creepy things that happened in the house that
Yeah.
spooked them. And it was validating in a sense
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
weren't like really open about it. But when you would have people over and they
Yeah.
would experience
Yeah.
things, you were kind of like, okay, maybe I am, mentally here because this person is seeing it
Yes. Yeah.
too,
Maybe it's not a family thing.
right? I think that that was a part. I always tell people in my like sort of paranormal work and how I got into it and what happened even at the house. It's like a perfect storm.
Yeah.
There's the family history, the family abilities that Lorraine felt was there. There's the exposure to a haunting that was there at the house.
Yeah.
And and then there's life events where maybe spirits come closer to us when we go through something major. And when we sort of combine those things, a property, an inheritance, an ability, then we really start to cultivate, that
Yeah.
connection, and we don't even realize we're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And is there anybody in the house now, or what happened to the house?
Sure. So, my mom did have Lorraine come and it did feel a lot better, but Lorraine did sort of give us the caveat that when there were big changes in the family or things like that, that we might see the activity resume. Sometimes properties do that in times of big change. When I went to college, my mom did notice that the activity was starting to come back. Obviously, I had had a lot of experiences when I was there, so maybe me leaving was definitely a part of it.
Yeah.
And ironically, when I was studying abroad in Ireland during my junior year, she said the activity had gotten really intense.
Oh.
So she quickly sold the house, and that was about 18 years ago.
Yeah.
And when she sold the house, a new family moved in. She stayed in town, just not near the house. But she did say while she was trying to sell the house, like the realtor and stuff was reporting things happening too.
Yeah.
I came back from Ireland and the house hadn't quite sold, so I was able to grab a few things and I could just feel this palpable energy, coming from the house. And then That was in 2006. And since then, 6 families have sort of moved in and out. A
Yes.
lot of them claiming paranormal activity
Yeah.
there, some of them not. Recently, I gave a book talk in a neighboring town to the town I grew up in. And there was a gal who came, and at the end, she told me she had just moved into that house,
Oh,
my
gee.
child's home.
Oh, wow.
And she had really good experiences there. And so we had a really nice conversation about how just one property, the property itself is just one part of the puzzle piece, and how sometimes people who aren't going through these life changes or have these abilities can live in a property pretty peacefully and quietly and not have the same experiences. We had a really nice chat. But yeah, it's still a private residence, and depending on who lives there, depends on what happens.
So you went to Ireland to study history and Irish
And
history
politics of all things.
and politics as well. Okay. Do a little telling us about that, because you know an awful lot of the people that know you might not even know this.
I know. I feel like, when I was in college, politics was more like normal than it is in the year 2024. So now I'm just like, that was a different Courtney, but it was
Yeah.
also a different world. So I studied international politics when I was in college. I've always found it fascinating to compare cultures and societies and what party systems they use and what works for them. And I really liked the diversity of that and comparing that. So when I went to Catholic University in Washington, D.C., and we were given basically three, spectrums or like routes that you could pursue with politics. And one was American politics, one was international, and one was theory. And I chose international.
Yeah.
And when I interned, or when I studied abroad, I interned at the Dáil, and we were assigned either Fine Gael or Fianna Fáil. So even though Ireland is a multi-party system, in a lot of ways they're very similar to America, and like two parties really kind of are in control most of the time.
Yeah.
Uh, there were a lot of students previously who had asked for Sinn Féin, as I was interested in, but we were not allowed that. So they said that that was problematic.
Yeah.
So we were allowed, Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael. I was assigned to a deputy who was based out of Limerick. And so I was his assistant in Dublin. I worked in his office. He was in his car a lot because they had just banned smoking in the Dáil, and that made him unhappy. So I really, I got the run of the office, and, he worked
And you
from his
stayed out in the car.
he worked from his car so he could keep smoking. And there was a lovely lady who also worked in the office with me, and she was all about teaching me about tea breaks and how often we can have them. She was fantastic. And I had a great time. And I was the one who like answered the phones and listened to constituent issues that they might present, which when you're working, this is 2006 in Limerick, it would be about the sidewalk or the road needing work, or things like that they would call in and, make sure that their voice was heard. And
Yeah.
so my job was to, give him those messages and make sure that they were heard. And
Yeah.
I really had a pleasant experience there. Other folks, other deputies that didn't work from their car would often come and check on me and see how I was doing. And I had a really great time. And I studied too at University College Dublin while I was there. So in addition to my internship, I was taking colleges in history and poetry and things like that, as it relates to Ireland specifically. And while I was there, I got to pick a special study,
Yeah.
and I picked the topic of Irish travelers.
Mhm.
I found them so fascinating, probably because I have a gypsy soul inside of me. And I volunteered at a school for Irish travelers out in Wicklow, and worked with the kids there. A bunch of little redheads like me. They were
Yeah.
adorable. And I had a great time. And then I actually wrote my senior thesis about the culture of Irish travelers. So it was
Okay.
just a really great time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that would be totally alien to an American girl growing up in America. I
Oh,
mean,
yes.
that would not have been something that you would have even thought about growing up in America.
No. And the professors kind of told us, and this is such a testament to the time, the Celtic Tiger economy was still going strong. This was before the crash of 2008. Ireland was really doing well. And they were sort of painting this picture for us of, how great Ireland was. And the travelers were like, ooh, the ne'er-do-wells, like they're going to steal from you. They're trouble. They get in trouble with the law. And I am a rebel child. So the moment I heard that there were trouble causing people, I was like, I'm gonna find them and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna get to know them.
yeah,
And I can't speak for everyone. Um, but for me, other than, some kids, poaching my cell phone because they were probably really pumped to find one. I had nothing but a really great experience with them. Kind, nurturing, really wanting to learn. Their parents, shuttling me back and forth from the school to the home where I resided, which was
yeah.
in a pretty affluent area. So the people I was residing with at that time didn't love it. But
Yes,
but the travelers were, very accommodating to me, and very grateful for just me helping the kids.
yeah,
And they kind of, what was really interesting is segregation is something that we talk about a lot in America as it relates to the 1960s, and the integration of Black kids into the schools with the white kids. And over there, it's going to sound really strange that there's a segregation between traveler kids
yeah,
and, the mainstream population, if you want to call it that. And people were kind of like, how can there be segregation in, the 2000s? But when I was speaking with the traveler population, a lot of them felt like it was for the safety of their children as well. That
yeah,
like the bullying and the things like that in the mainstream schools, because of the cultural differences, were really hard, especially on little kids.
yeah,
So in a sense, it was like they wanted this special school for them,
yeah,
because they felt they were safe there.
yeah.
So it's interesting.
It is, yeah. And I know when I was growing up, I grew up in a small little village in South Sligo, and um, this traveller family, and a lot of the traveller families would come through the village at a certain time. And of course, the men would always go to the farms and shoe the horses or heel the horses. They were great healers. And there was this woman, I won't name her, she's long since gone, but she used to call to the house to my mother. And we had a statue of the Blessed Virgin in the kitchen. And I remember as a small child, my mother would sit her down beside the fire and they'd have something to eat and they'd have the cup of tea. And of course, this woman would have gone from village to village. So she'd have all the news from one village to another.
Yeah, she knew, she was like
You,
the gossip
she
bringer.
was, exactly. So my mother would sit down and she'd hear all this different news, but she would kneel down then and I would watch her as a small child praying for my mother and her children.
Yeah,
I mean, and she
because there was a
genuinely would,
gratitude there,
yeah. And every year she'd come, and
hmm
every year it'd be the same thing. She'd get something to eat. My mother would give her whatever she could afford, and then she would kneel down in front of that statue and she would pray for my mother and her children. And the funny thing is, a few years later, in the small school that I was in, some of her grandchildren, for some reason, they came to the school for only a few weeks, but there was two of them, Paddy and Mary. And Paddy knew who I was, or he knew what family I was from. And Paddy decided very, very quickly that he was my protector.
I love that.
And
I think
he was going to be, and years and years and years later, I'm working in Sligo town and I'm in an optometrist, and this man comes in with his daughter and he looks at me and he says, "You don't know me, do you?" I says, "I don't." And he told me who he was.
and you
He,
remembered.
he remembered me. Yeah.
I love that. And I think it's a testament to our humanity, really, like in any culture where we see this divide, that we're really not that different. Like the things that the traveler community really differed on with the mainstream community, that when you really cut it down to the bare bones, was how they viewed property. right?
Yeah.
And you know, they didn't subscribe. And in a way, it kind of reminds me of ancient cultures, you know, like even Pocahontas sings about it in the Disney film, right? Like that you can't own land, that
Yeah.
it doesn't belong to anybody. It
Yeah.
belongs to all of us. And in a way, it was kind of like that. Like, but in a mainstream world where that's not
Yeah.
accepted, you know, when these people are like, this is my land and you can't be on it. I have exchanged money for this. We
Yes.
run into this very cultural like problem without a clear answer.
Yeah.
But when it comes to common humanity, that doesn't change.
Yeah, it doesn't. So that was your experience in Ireland, and did you fall in love with Ireland?
Of course, I had visited once before when I was in high school. My mom took us all, and we stayed at all these B&Bs and little castles, and so I knew then that I loved it. And I picked Catholic University
Yeah.
because they had one of the only study abroad programs in Ireland,
Uh-huh.
and I knew that it was a phenomenal program and you had to excel academically to get in it. So I worked my tushy off
Yeah.
because I wanted that program so bad.
Yeah.
That's really why I picked the school I picked is I wanted that program. I knew my heart wanted to be in Ireland. And I even had applied at University College Cork and was accepted there as well,
Yeah.
which is where my family lineage is from. But
Okay.
I kind of had a little bit of like I'm not ready to go that far away from my mom and my sister's thing
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
So this was like a good compromise. So I picked Catholic University, went to University College Dublin my junior year, came back and graduated from Catholic University. And then when I graduated, you know, with a full love of Ireland, and I still tell myself, you know, now I'm 37 and I still tell myself I'm moving back there one day. I am. I graduated and I started pursuing work for the government, as one
Yeah.
would with a political science major.
Yeah.
I had in my senior year, after I returned from Ireland, interned for the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, which a lot of people know is NCIS, but there's a real one in DC.
Yeah. It's I used to love watching that program, NCIS.
The real one was not nearly as tech wild as the
Yeah.
show. Like, holy moly. It was at the Washington Navy Yard in DC. And I did two internships. One was in the communications office. And then I moved on to cold case homicide, which I was just so intrigued by. I love putting
Cold
together
case homicide.
puzzles.
Oh my gosh. So
I
you
loved
started
it.
you started your investigation life very, very early.
And I feel like I learned through that, you know, that's where I learned to corroborate facts, which is why my paranormal work, you see so much history in mine, which,
Yeah.
you know, hit or miss with people, but I love corroborating the facts with the harder to explain stuff. It makes it
Yes.
meaningful, you know,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like it would in a case. So in cold case homicide was honestly, I started having more paranormal experiences
Uh-huh.
when I was working there because I felt like I was sort of getting messages like with information I wouldn't already know that helped me to sort of go down trains of thought.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
but it kind of spooked me. It spooked me. And it spooked my roommates because they started noticing when I was working there that like radios would turn on in the middle of the night or like what the faucet would be left running when no one left it running. And so I knew it was sort of like opening that up again a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
But I also loved it and I loved the people I met and I wanted to work there, but they weren't hiring at that time. And I graduated into a recession. So things were like closing up real fast for
Oh, wow.
opportunities because I graduated in 2008. So, you know, what was this wonderful picture in 2006 quickly changed.
Yeah.
And so I graduated in 2008 and, you know, mercifully the FBI was hiring and I applied for them. I wanted to continue doing what I had been doing,
Yeah.
but they were only hiring, you know, our age group for counterterrorism, which I took that job thinking I don't know anything about counterterrorism. I've only written about the IRA. And so they took 2 years to background search me to make sure I wasn't a member.
Yes.
And that took a very long time. They went over to Ireland and talked to everybody that I knew, because I also corresponded with people online in
Yes.
Ireland, and they had to go find them, and like, oh, it was
Wow.
wild, and I did write about them in addition to the travelers, so I guess they had suspicions. But
Yes, yeah, yeah. Well, if you talk about the, at one stage, if you mentioned the word IRA at all,
oh, yeah. And I wrote about the history of it, for one of my classes. And I sort of traced back all these roots, going back hundreds of years to like what really could have been considered the first Irish
yeah, yeah,
Republican Army. And
yeah, the IRB,
right. And how we're really talking about, people who initially were really fighting for freedom for a really long time, and then how that changed to what we are more familiar with today, but that was not the origination point.
yes, yeah, yeah,
um
yeah,
that it was a different kind of freedom fighter. So it was an interesting research topic again.
yeah.
But it did get me an extra long process for a security clearance because of
Wow.
that. But I got accepted into the FBI, worked in counterterrorism. I mostly worked in analysis of like Middle Eastern terrorist groups. I didn't love it. It's not my
Your thing.
knowledge base.
Yeah,
It's not what I had an interest in. It's absolutely important. I just don't think it was meant for me.
yeah,
And I didn't love living in a city and commuting to an office. And it was just not the lifestyle that I had wanted. So after a few years, after graduating the FBI Academy, which I had to go to school at after, and working there for a few years, I worked for Homeland Security in Vermont. I was closer to my sister,
yeah,
and it was a similar position of lack of interest, but at least I was in Vermont,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is beautiful. And I did like it there a lot. But again, working in an office, like, it didn't change
yeah,
who I
yeah.
am. So I, much to the dismay of my mother, left the government after a couple years there and started my own company. Uh,
Yes,
yeah, so that's that's like how I kind of got here. While I was living in Vermont, I did meet a woman who ran ghost tours there as well, and she really inspired me, and she
yeah,
was a
because
writer like I wanted to be. So the pieces were meant to be.
yeah, because I was wondering how did that start off? How did you decide? Oh, ghost tours.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to write, and I knew I loved history, but my mom had always said to me, like, your father was a history major, and he was a police officer. What job are you going to do with history? And you're not really using your politics degree, which is true,
Yeah, yeah,
that I sort of just tabled, I
yeah,
suppose.
yeah,
And I was like, oh man, I have to get creative. And when I was living in Vermont, I took a ghost tour with a woman up there, Thea Lewis. She's fantastic. She still runs Queen City Ghost Walk, and she wrote for the History Press. And I thought, yes,
I can do
this
this.
is me. Like,
Yeah,
this is what I can, this is what I can do. So
yeah,
I had lunch with her, and she was so kind in allowing me to have lunch with her, and she told me how she got started and who she worked with. And then I went back to Connecticut, and you know, no money, no plan really, other than I'm going to do ghost tours
yeah,
and write books and hope for the best.
yeah,
So there was a struggle period and a lot of panic when it came to my poor mom,
yeah.
but it eventually paid off, and it's been now 11 years almost. And
Wow.
I still run Seaside Shadows. I still write books. I'm expanding Seaside Shadows. I'm just, doing what I was supposed to be doing all along.
Yeah. And where did your interest in writing come from?
When I was little, I was just like a voracious reader. My parents read to me every single night, and I wasn't really allowed to watch much TV, or I was not allowed to play any video games. Books were my world. They were
World.
my everything. I always had my nose in a book, and I really wanted to be a part of that world. And I told my dad I was going to be a writer. That came after Storm Chaser, once I realized that that was not actually going to be a job I was going to get in Connecticut, of all places. I decided writing would be sufficient. But I think it came from a love of books at a young age.
And
And
you have a massive love of music as well.
I do. I do. I'm so passionate about music, even though I don't have musical talents. I, I spend all my free time when I'm not writing or doing history, I am at shows. Like,
Yeah.
and I travel the country to go to shows. Like, it's my heart. And I think
Yeah.
that's my culture too.
And it's very good for the brain and the psyche as well, isn't it?
It
And you
is.
meet
I
so
tell
many
people,
fantastic people. You meet
yes.
so many fantastic
Oh
people.
my gosh, I have friends everywhere I go now that I never would have had before. And quite honestly, they're some of my best friends.
Yeah.
And I tell people, that's how I avoid not being on anxiety medication is my shows. Like they help me, my heart and my mind and the
Yeah.
friends. It's just my favorite thing to do.
That's fantastic. Do you want to talk about our upcoming trip to Ireland in
I
2025?
do. I feel like I've already been like tiptoeing around how I got interested in it.
Yeah, yeah. Like
you
I mean,
know,
you approached me at one stage, and you had this idea. You wanted to do something about doing
yes.
a tour in Ireland. Do you want to
Yes.
talk about what your ideas were?
Yes. So as I mentioned, I wrote about the history of the travelers and I wrote about the history of the IRA. And I, got very interested in Irish history during that time. And when I was in college, people were introducing me to the history of Michael Collins and Eamon de Valera and all these things. And when I got married in Ireland in 2013, my husband's not from Ireland, but I made him get married there anyway. Before we went on our honeymoon to Paris, I said, we've got to go to Kilmainham jail so that you can see
Oh,
where the rebels were. Day after we get married, but it's fine. So
yeah,
I have had a long fascination and affection for Irish history, especially when it comes to the history of rebellion, which is
yes,
really the history of Ireland
yeah.
and their journey to freedom from from the UK. So
From the
from
Vikings, from the
everybody,
Normans, from everybody.
their journey to protect their culture and their identity has always been profound, and it's been something within them. And they used whatever resources they had, and they faced starvation,
Yes,
famine, attacks, and just brutal war
yeah,
struck upon them for just wanting to be themselves.
yeah, yeah,
More than, maybe the Scots could rival them, but they're
yeah.
pretty close in like just fighting for the right to be who they are.
Yes,
And
yes,
I always, was drawn to that. And so I really focused on that history. And I, would spend all my time in Ireland going through the sites of the Easter Rising of 1916 and just getting to learn more about who these folks were and how they got propelled forward to
yeah,
make a free republic.
yeah,
So, with my personal fascination and my paranormal instincts, I wanted to create like a Rebels of Ireland tour where we go meet the spirits of these rebels and the sites that were so integral to their fight for Ireland and who they were, where we might have the best chance at meeting them. And
yeah.
so a lot of people go to Ireland just to see some of the sites which are worth seeing. And
But
we're
yeah,
absolutely going to incorporate some of them into our
yeah,
tours, the castles
we'll
and
be seeing some beautiful sights.
yes, the castles and the landscapes are not to be ignored, but neither is the fighting Irish spirit that we, proudly embrace in so many of us who are of Irish descent. So it's a combination of those things. And so we're doing a Rebels of Ireland tour, and it's going to be spiritual, it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be historical. So
It
I'm
is
excited.
because I want to tell your followers or anyone that's listening. And by the ways, we are on Magical Ireland with May and Secret Ireland Tours. Thank you so much for joining us if you're watching us. And I'm talking to Courtney McInvale, and we're talking about her life. We're about to talk about her very special tour coming up in September of 2025. So you've got
Yes.
a full year, maybe more, to kind of get on. We've got an installment plan for people, Courtney. Now, originally when we worked on this, we were going to do it Easter of
We were.
we
We
were,
were.
and then things came up for you and things came up for me, and that was shelved. But
It was, but I think that there's a reason for it.
yeah,
And so even though Easter matches, the anniversary of the Easter rising,
rising, yeah,
we can find, battles throughout the year, rebellions throughout the year. And for all of us who are kind of on the spiritual side, we love the idea of Samhain, aka Halloween, bringing us a little extra energy. And as we get into the fall, we really feel that veil begin to thin. And I
yes.
think it will be just a beautiful time, in the fall to get the history, but embrace the spiritual side of it as well.
And I'll tell you, as an Irish person, I'm telling you this as a fact. You can't throw a stone, but you'll hit a ghost in Ireland.
It's true. It's true. And it's embraced, which is one of my
Yes, yeah.
favorite things. I remember when I was younger, I was so fascinated by all the supernatural that's embraced in Ireland, banshees, fairies, leprechauns. Like it's it's not, oh, that's a story. This is life. This is lore. This is
Oh yeah,
things
this
that
is
people, it's culture. It's
yeah,
not something that you just see on TV.
yeah,
And I absolutely love that. Even like nature spirits that are
yeah,
ingrained into Ireland. And you can feel that. And even
yeah.
though we can say, there's no way any of that is true, the
We don't take
effect
chances.
of it is
We don't
true.
take chances. We don't
You
take
don't take
chances.
chances.
No,
And
like
there's
I
some
mean,
things you just can't explain.
yeah, I mean, for instance, we have a lot of, well, people call them superstitions. You can call them culture or traditions, like Halloween Eve, Samhain Eve. You're saying goodbye to the old Celtic year, and you're
Mhm.
bringing in the new Celtic
Yes.
year. And with that, you would open your back door
Hmm.
and you would open your front door. So you
Hmm.
let the bad energy out your back door and you
Yes.
open your front door
Good
to let the
energy.
good energy in. That's only one custom that's done. Um, New Year's Eve, we we would throw tea leaves out the back to the fairies so that they'll grant us protection for the new year.
Yeah, I love that. I do that at Beltane too, little
Yeah,
flowers for the
yeah,
fairies.
flowers. Yeah,
Yeah.
you always have a baltana. We call it baltana. Um, you'd have your buttercups. You'd have your bunch of buttercups or yellow flowers. We would normally pick buttercups. I don't know what they have buttercups in America, but we would pick buttercups because they're yellow. But you could have daffodils or whatever, and you put them outside, um, over your front door.
Right. You don't take chances, like you said.
And
You
for instance, a fairy fort, unless you get permission, you don't go into it.
Oh, absolutely not. I remember, and again, Scotland's a little similar, but there's this. I love the show Outlander, and there's this, it's a time traveling woman, and she goes back to, 18th century Scotland, and they're trying to figure out what is making these boys sick, and she's into medicine, and everyone's saying, oh, that they ate these like things that were basically possessed by another creature or a fairy, and a changeling, and they're talking about all that.
Yeah.
And she doesn't buy any of that. And the gentleman she ends up, being her partner, she kind of scoffs at him for mentioning it. And he's like, listen, I'm an educated man, but even I'm saying there are things beyond our understanding,
Gambling, yeah,
and that culture is so strong here. You have to sort of, give it its basically its credibility, right? Like even
yeah,
if it's not real to you, it's real to them. And so
yeah.
it is real, you
Yes,
know,
yes, exactly,
in that
exactly.
way.
I think the Irish, because it's an agricultural country more so than it is an industrial one, the farmers are closer to the land and they're closer to
Yes.
nature,
Yes.
and I mean, the farmers at home, if there's a lone whitethorn tree on the land, they will leave it there. They will not
Wow.
remove it, you know. There's no way
Yeah.
they'll remove it.
No, and they
There's
shouldn't.
yeah, they shouldn't. But so it's amazing. We're a superstitious lot, or maybe that's not the good word to say. Maybe it's
Magical.
magical lot, yes. But your tour, it's called Seaside Shadows. No, it's called Courtney and Seaside Shadows Spiritual Tour, Rebels of Ireland. And
Yeah.
it actually starts September the 9th to the 19th, I think.
Yeah.
An 11-day tour, Courtney.
Yeah, and that's my fault a little bit, but there's just so much to see and do, and we wanted to make sure that anyone who comes with us gets a well-rounded experience.
Yes,
So they're not just seeing the Easter Rising or just seeing the Battle of the Boyne. They get to go journey through that with us,
yes,
and some other special sites as they relate to Michael Collins as well. But in addition, we wanted to make sure you get those magical experiences, things with
yes,
leprechauns and fairies, where
yes,
you get to see, natural wonders as well. It's a well-rounded tour, and we want to make sure you have all of
yeah.
that.
Because
So that's why we're
we,
doing it that way.
yeah, we had to change a few little things, but one thing that I have to change, um, you might be able to see that there. That's Saint Michael's crypt. We were
That's
going to,
amazing.
we were going to go to that. Some of those bodies are 300 years old, some of them are 800 years old. But recently, some man went in and burnt it, and they've been destroyed.
So these people, these
The crypt,
relics,
yeah,
I think they're called like indestructibles when they're saints and they don't fully,
yeah,
go away.
yeah.
But like, and just one
He
stupid
set
person.
fire, and so therefore the water that was used to quench the fire did a lot of damage. But there is a church, Christ Church, across the road from it that also has crypts. So we'd be able to add that in. Now I have to just do a little bit of updating on the We Travel website. But we're
Well,
going to go,
there's crypts aplenty, which is what matters.
yes, yes, exactly. We won't be without a crypt or two. But we'll be going to the Leprechaun Museum up in Carlingford. There's a
Yes.
very interesting man there that can tell us plenty of stories, and it's just a bit of fun. But
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's known as Ireland's leprechaun whisperer. So
I love it. So
yeah,
I'm
so
not gonna rule out meeting one or two. I'm not
yes,
gonna
absolutely.
you
Then
know.
we're going to go to Boyne Valley and or learn about the Battle of the Boyne and all of that. That'll be day one. Brazenhead Pub then will come down to Dublin again because you'll be flying into Dublin. We'll go up the
Yes.
north, and then we'll be coming back down to Dublin again, spend a couple of days in Dublin. But the Brazenhead Pub is actually regarded as being one of the most haunted pubs
So
in.
we're starting you off with leprechauns and ghosts. Let it be
Yes,
known.
yes. And a little bit of scenery as well. So that is your day one.
Right? It's remarkable. And we're going to see so much of Ireland, like
Uh,
so much of it.
Day two, we'll be going to see Robert Emmet, the Robert Emmet Memorial and the Garden of
Mhm.
Remembrance and
Mhm.
Pearse's house. And there's a few more sites that we'll be seeing there as well. Now, originally, we were supposed to be going during Easter and we were going to be taking a 1916 Rising walk that's only done during the 1916,
But we're going
during
to get
the
you to
time.
those
We
places,
get them,
on
yeah.
our own
Yeah,
pace and
exactly.
tempo.
And I might just be able to talk that tour guide into coming along and bringing us to a few places anyway. But
I love that.
he normally just does it during the Easter.
Yeah.
Garden of Remembrance is a beautiful place. Apart from the history of the place, it's apart from the spookiness of any of these places, there's some amazing history attached to these places as well.
And
And of
that's
course,
something we can cultivate on the tour. It's something that's become important to me is, by sharing the supernatural stories in a way that tells the truth, we're honoring the memory and ensuring they're not forgotten. So,
yeah, and of course, while we're at different locations and venues, Courtney, I'm sure you will be tuning into spirit, and you'll probably be told a lot of stuff that we might not even know.
I hope so. I always, let them know that I am an empathetic ear, and if
Mm.
they need to say something, I'm more than happy to listen. Um, but I also ensure them, as I think we'll collectively do as a group, that we're here to remember them and honor their memory. So if they need to say anything, they have this like open space to do so.
So,
And
yeah,
I think it's important to remind them of the successes that have come from their efforts, that it wasn't
yeah,
all in vain, and we'll
exactly.
chat with
Absolutely.
them.
Yeah. So then day three, we're going to a place called Glendalough. Beautiful, beautiful place. But it is a monastic site and it dates back to the 4th century.
Yes.
There's a perfect round tower there as well. And the scenery on the way to this place is beautiful, but this in itself is a very mystical, magical place. And it's essentially it's a monastic site, as I said, but there's the ruins of some churches there, and there's a graveyard there, and the round tower is there as well. And it is a beautiful place to visit, riddled with history.
And
And
if we're going to be talking about Irish rebels and what they're fighting for, we have to go back as far as we can.
exactly. And I mean, this place was attacked by the Normans. It was attacked by it was attacked by everybody. So
The
I'm
poor
sure,
Irish, but also I don't think I'd have red hair if the Vikings didn't come over. So
yeah. So there you go. There's always a silver lining to everything, isn't there? So day four, we're going down to Enniscorthy and we're going to Vinegar Hill, one of the big battle sites there. Vinegar Hill and Carrickburn Hill. They're two very big battle sites, but it's a beautiful part of the country as well.
and
And
also spiritual sites as well.
yes,
So
and they are spiritual, very spiritual and very sacred sites to the Irish. You
hmm
know, I mean, it might just look like a field to some people, but there's some very sacred sites to the
that's
Irish.
right.
So that is day four. Day five. Oh yeah, this is just a nice kind of a relaxed day. We're going to be going from Enniscorthy to a beautiful coastal town called Youghal. And it's just one of those nice relaxed places we can just drop in for an hour and go through, and it's a very small, colorful coastal seaside town.
Our
And then
brain can process everything we've been taking in
and then we can go for a different kind of spiritual experience in Middleton Distillery,
and
Jameson Distillery. You
I can vouch for that distillery myself. It
and
is excellent.
it is actually, and the tour is very good as well.
It is. And you get this lovely flight at the end. And they do well, when I went, they did this Jameson and ginger.
Tasting, yeah, they do. They give you all these little glasses that you can taste, and some people don't drink whiskey, so you get to drink their threes.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
so,
right.
and then
You
you
have
would
a very happy rest of your day.
yes, exactly. I've experienced. I don't drink whiskey. I don't drink, but I've experienced people on the tour having a great day that day.
I'll be having a great day with you because I love my whiskey.
Yeah. Well, then after that we go. Oh, there's a secret place you're going to go between Bushmills or Jameson Distillery and the next venue. The next venue is Cove Titanic Experience.
Yes.
This is really an amazing experience. The building itself. Now, for anyone who doesn't know where Cove is, it was called Queenstown Harbour, and it's the very bottom of Cork. And the Titanic, that was the last stop for the Titanic before it went on to its fate, its terrible fate that day. And that is the last, what's left of the pier is the last place people stood on before they got into the boats and went out to the ocean to get on the
And that's
Titanic.
going to be so much energy with that little piece
Yes,
of
it is.
property.
It is. And that the actual building itself that you will be going into is actually the original place where you would have gone in to get your ticket to go on the Titanic. And
Sad,
to
like
give you,
sad, but also so compelling.
yes, it is. It's an amazing, they've done such a great job of telling the whole story with such respect and dignity. You know, I mean, I know it is a tourist spot, but it is so well done. You go in
Mhm.
and you get a ticket like you're going on the ship, and you get a replica of what was given to people at the time, and there'll be a name on your ticket.
Mm.
And the name is of one of the people that were actually on the ship. So then you'll go through the whole
That
tour.
makes it more real, you know?
It does, because as you're going through the tour and you see, you know, the different classes of people or the different classes on the ship, you're told that when you get through, there's a wall and you can check to see if your name survived or if it didn't. The person
Oh,
that
that's heartbreaking.
and
I went to a Civil War museum that was very similar, and my husband and I each had a soldier,
yeah.
and we listened to them like a reenactment of their voice throughout the war. And then at the end, you know, his had lived and mine had died. And you know, it's
And you
heartbreaking.
realize that these are actual people, because then all of a
Yes,
sudden now
yes.
you're looking at their name on the ticket and you're
Hmm.
looking at their name on the wall and you realize, oh gosh, she didn't make it.
Yes, yeah. And it kind of becomes your person, you're
Yeah,
invested,
yeah,
you
but
know.
it's so well done. And Cove itself is a beautiful little coastal town as well. And
I'm looking forward to that
there's a
too.
beautiful cathedral in it as well. So that is day 5, and we will be staying in Cork that night. Day 6
My
will be,
ancestral homeland.
yes, exactly. We're going to go to Charles Fort the next day, which is a fort. Um, it was one of these places where, you know, you'd fight off people who'd be coming in from the water to attack. And
Mhm.
that's very haunted. There's a
I love
story, there's
that.
a ghost story about Charles Fort. I mean, you could do a little bit of an investigation there if people
Of
want.
course we can. I'll make sure
Yeah.
I pack some goodies in my bag for us.
Yeah, because there'd be a few places that you'll be able to do a few investigations if you wanted, you know. I mean, you're going to be going to Wicklow Jail the second day. I forgot to mention that.
Okay. Oh, yes, Wicklow Jail.
The jail.
Are we doing Kilmainham too?
No, I can't get Kilmainham. I cannot get whatever is happening with Kilmainham. They're so busy now. The tickets go up at a certain time, and unless you buy them straight away, they're gone.
No. So we will try.
I have tried.
Oh,
I have tried, and for different
wow.
things as well.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're if they think there's any paranormal thing at all, they shy away from it. All of a sudden, I don't know why. But however,
Mm,
I have tried. We can try again, but we'll see. So
mm,
Charles Fort will be then going to Bale. That's where Michael Collins, one of our great freedom fighters and one of our great soldiers, was assassinated by the
yeah.
British.
He's just a phenomenal character too. So if you're coming on the tour, like just read a little bit about him or watch a YouTube video or something. And I think, you know, he just has this personality that draws you in. And
Yes, yeah, and
yeah.
he was a great man. And we'll
Mhm.
go to hit the Collins Centre in Clonakilty as well. And Clonakilty is a beautiful little place as well. So that will be day 6. Day 7. Oh, yes, day 7 is going to be totally just scenery. We're going
Yeah.
around the Ring of Kerry.
Oh, yes. I'm so excited about that. The Ring of Kerry just,
It's
it
stunning.
never disappoints. And there is this like, I don't know, there's a magic to it.
There
There
is absolutely,
is.
it's stunning, and it's like it has scenery, it has ancient forts, it has a beautiful waterfall, it has views that you can see. It's the lakes are there. It's
Everywhere I
all
see
is
in the
there.
Ring of Kerry, I just feel like I'm a princess. Like that's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like going through her magical garden, you know, it's beautiful.
And again, you know, we're not going to be rushing and racing and going, jumping from one place to another. You're going to get time to experience all these places. You're going
And
to
we
be,
want you to breathe it in and, you know, let it
yeah,
fill
and
you up, you
get a
know?
sense of the place. And you know, you might even meet. Usually, we meet locals who have some of the local history, but not alone do they have that, but they have the mythology and the folklore as well.
That's who you want to meet and who you want to talk to,
Yeah,
100%. They have all of it.
they have, they have, they have, and they don't mind sharing it with you either. Let me tell you,
They
the
don't,
Irish
well,
love to.
the best thing about Ireland is the people. Like
Yeah.
none of them will be a stranger to you.
And then there's a famine. This is day 8. We're hoping to get, and we will get to the famine warehouse.
Yes.
It started in 1848 and it's in Ballygarry. And that will be on our way up to Bunratty Castle, which is a
Yep.
very famous
I'm
place to go.
excited about all of that. The Famine Museum, I think, is going to be, especially for Americans, like so many of our ancestors arrived in America due to the famine. So to be able to really know what they went through is
Yeah,
such a personal connection
it
to
is.
so
Yeah,
many of us.
because you know, we had the warehouse and we had famine workhouses, and
Hmm.
these were really horrendous places.
Hmm.
I mean,
I
they
know
were,
personally a lot of my ancestors came over after that
yeah, yeah,
and they couldn't read or write and they were just barely surviving and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
definitely something to take a moment and Bunratty will be a nice beautiful piece after that.
And not alone will you be able to get into the castle, but there's a fantastic folk park there as well.
There
And
is.
there is, and you know, you've got the real old thatch houses and the way we lived years and years ago, and then you've got an old village setting as
Oh,
well.
it's beautiful. And
And
I'm
it
so partial to that folk park because when we got married, we stopped there and they told us for a lucky marriage that we could walk around with the sheepdogs and have our photos with them and they would bring us a happy marriage. And
yeah,
so framed like not far from me right now are pictures of myself and my husband
and
with the Irish sheepdogs, you
yeah,
know, in
yeah,
yeah,
it's a great place to
or
visit.
wolfhounds, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the wolfhounds.
The
So
Wolfhounds,
day
that's it.
9, we're going to be going to Aughrim Battle Site and at Lone Heritage, and we have a major surprise for people that day. And I better not say anything. I was going to tell you it involves something, but no, we
No,
won't
then it's
tell
not a
them, Courtney.
surprise.
We will not tell them because I think that this will be a major. They will really enjoy what we're going to be doing that day.
Yes,
Yeah.
we won't divulge it.
Yes, and then we're going to visit the hill of Uisneach. Now, the hill of Uisneach is a hill on the dead centre of Ireland. Very sacred hill,
Oh, yes.
very historical hill. And a lot of meetings were held in the hill of Uisneach. But during Baltana every year, we have what's called the Festival of Fire. And again, it's ushering in the summer and, you know, saying goodbye to the harsh winter. And the fire is, there's a big massive mound built on the hill of Uisneach. And when the sun goes down on a certain day, now there's horses, there's galloping of the horses, there's beating of the drums, there's the maidens that walk through the fertility stones, and all of this is done. There's music, there's dancing, there's singing, there's all these different magical things that happen during that festival. But the most magical thing is, as soon as the sun goes down, this mound is lit and it is seen around Ireland and the 7 hills around. You'll see one fire after another is lit.
See, I've got chills just thinking about
And
that.
you can see that from, and it really is, I mean, it brings your roots right back down through to Ireland, down into the soil. Again,
Yes.
when you see that and when you hear the horses galloping, and it really is a magical place, but the history of it is amazing. and we'd be doing a little tour of that particular
I am
place.
so
Well,
excited about that.
yes, and day 10, we go back up to Dublin, but we go to Strokestown House first. This was one of these estate houses that was owned by a kind of an agency, you know, an English agent, and they have a fantastic famine museum in it. But they have great walled gardens, and they have a great tour of the house. The house is in magnificent condition, and it is really, really historical, and it's full of history.
It's going to be great.
And the famine museum is really, really, really interesting and very good. And as a historian, you would be very interested in it, and you could pick up a lot of information
Absolutely.
that you might.
Absolutely. I
And
mean, I
then
think the famine too, for anyone that's not in the know, it fits in with the stories of our rebels because a lot of this famine was induced by the warfare and the
does, yeah.
attacks on the Irish. So it didn't just happen that one day they didn't have food. So it all ties in with the story that you're going to be
Yes,
hearing.
yeah, a lot of the famine, you know, we would say, well, it wasn't really a famine. You know, a lot of there was a lot of food in Ireland at the time, but it was all shipped out to the English armies.
Right. Right. It
Yeah.
was
So
it was a direct, kind of, middle finger to the Irish, to be
yes,
honest.
and then we're going to go to Ballinamuck 1798 Centre, which would be very interesting. Again,
Mhm,
it's another battleground, Drumlish,
mhm.
Ballinamuck. And then we're going to visit, and we might just be staying in Clontarf Castle. Now, the Vikings are very, very well known around Clontarf Castle, hordes of Viking warriors.
Or
And
maybe my ancestor was there. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, you'd never know. Maybe
Some red-headed Viking came
yes,
through.
yes, yeah. So that's day 10, and then day 11, we bring you back to the airport again.
I love it. And I think, you know, I hope people bring their like fighting Irish spirit for the rebellious part, and then also their spiritual element to just be at peace with how beautiful Ireland is.
Yes, you'll enjoy the scenery. You'll definitely connect with spirit. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
If you're interested in history, you will get a lot of it. And
Mhm.
you'll get the folklore and the mythology, and you'll have great fun in the pubs as well, because we
Oh,
there's a
yes.
crack as in fun. We don't,
Yes.
it's not
And
the other
there will
crack.
there be music in the pubs, May? There
Oh,
must be.
we'll sort something out, Courtney. Don't you once worry. We'll find
Good.
some pub that'll have music, and if we don't get music in the pubs, we'll make it ourselves.
We will. We
Yeah,
will.
yeah. One thing I require from any of your fans or your followers, you have to either have a song or a story or a joke or something to share on the tour, on the bus, when we're traveling from one place. We always say it makes the road shorter, Courtney.
I agree. And I
Yeah.
mean, if they are of Irish descent, like me, then the gift of gab should come unto them a little naturally.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And if we have time, we might even bring them up to uh, Blarney Castle, and if they want to get the gift of the gab, they can go and
You can get it there.
you can get it there. But I think as
I
we
kissed it
go,
twice. Can you tell by how much I
that's what the problem is. Well, it's very funny because I had one tour actually, and they were reasonably quiet on the bus, and we went on maybe the fourth day to Blarney Castle, and off they go, and the whole lot of them go up, and they come back on the bus. And oh my gosh, Courtney, I couldn't believe it. It was like, I'm thinking, this is like a cackling of hens. Just all over the place. It was hilarious.
believe it or not, when I was younger, everyone said I was introverted and barely spoke. And then I kissed the Blarney Stone twice and like, hello, I'm
Yeah.
like the most extroverted person. So it does do wonders.
Yeah, well, I didn't kiss the Blarney Stone, but I just kind of I realized if I don't talk, nobody's going to talk for me, so I'm as well to talk. But I think it's going to be a great tour. It's a very affordable tour. We have
Mhm.
installment plans, as I mentioned before. Courtney is going to be a fantastic ambassador for it. I mean, it's not like she's gone over to a country that she was never in before. She's familiar with a lot of the sites. She's familiar with the country, with the people. She's a very, very, in her own right, she has done tour guide work. So if I or whoever is the tour guide at the time, I'm not doing our job right, Courtney will pull us on it.
We're gonna, between all of us, we're gonna have so much fun and so much knowledge. And I can't wait to show all of you one of my favorite places in the world.
Yes, absolutely. So if anyone is interested in coming with us, I would suggest, Courtney, I don't know about you, but I think they should get their names down as soon as they can.
Get their names
Oh,
down, and I am so happy about the installment plan because that's something, that I
yeah.
use too on these big trips. And if you get your names down, you have all year to sort of chip away at it and let your
Okay.
excitement build and, get that sort of going with you so you're really jazzed by next
I'm
fall.
just going to show that's kind of the picture of all the places we'll be going.
So that's most of the Republic of Ireland too.
Yes.
So all
That
around it.
you'll find that on I'll give you the website, Secret Ireland Tours, LLC.com. And when
Mhm.
you get on there on the homepage, you'll see tabs and you'll see it under Spooky Tours for 2025. And
Yeah.
then all you have to do is hit, you'll see then tours for 2025, hit that and just scroll down and get Courtney's tour. And there'll be a link and it'll bring you into Courtney's page. And there's the beautiful Courtney. And, and you'll see a QR code. So if you want to put your name down on the jot form, the list, and I can contact you and give you information, or if you just want to continue and just book, pay your deposit, scroll down. Now, this is the phone, but it's a different format on the website. If you want to, oh, come on, there seems to be a lot of, you see this little button there? It's just above the map. If you click on that, that brings you onto the payment platform and it brings you onto all of the information you need. What your cost is, what your cost covers, what it does not cover. It gives you the information about Courtney, it gives you the itinerary day after day after day after day. Now on the website, on that page, before you click in, there's also 2 links for insurance companies if you want to purchase insurance, but you don't need to even worry about that until a few weeks before the tour. But
Mhm.
if people want to secure their place, and we're only taking 25 people.
Well, yes, we really want it to be an intimate experience so that you get to really experience it in a personal way with us.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be so much fun. And honestly, the package that May has put together, for the amount of places we get to see, it's really a steal. So
And you
well,
do
I'm
get to
excited.
stay in a castle the night before you leave.
Yeah, like what more could you ask for,
Yes,
right? You get to
yes,
be
absolutely.
you get to be in a fairy tale at the end.
Yes, absolutely. You can say I stayed in an Irish castle, haunted Irish castle, because all of them are haunted. The whole lot of them are haunted.
Oh,
But
yes.
yes, and it was great to hear your story and your beginnings and your middles and your adventures now, Courtney. Um,
Thank you so much for
yeah,
having me. And I can't wait to do this Ireland trip with you and everybody. So
I'm looking so forward to it as well. And we'll have many to come. We'll go different places or different parts of the country, but we'll get this one up and running first. And again, I'd advise people if they want to come with you, they need to get their names on fairly quick because it's only
yes,
25 people and it will fill fairly fast.
yes, yes. And
Yeah.
give yourself something to look forward to for
Yeah,
2020.
because something, we all need something to look forward to.
We do. We
We
do. And
do.
when we have that, our souls are happier.
And just for anyone who, is on their own or they're traveling on their own, don't worry about that. Once you get to Dublin Airport, you will be part of the group and everybody will welcome you. You don't have to be in a couple or you don't have to have somebody along
No.
with you. We will take you under I'll be the mammy, and I'll take everybody under my wing, and we just have everybody. It's amazing, actually. I love to watch it, because when people come into Dublin or wherever they come into, Shannon or Cork or wherever, and they're all very kind of shy and quiet and timid, and they don't say too much, and then a day goes by and they're a little bit more talkative, and then 3 days go by and they're laughing, and you're
Yeah.
hearing this roaring laughing on the bus, and you see people beginning to make friends with each other. And then
Yes.
all of a sudden there's a big group in the pub, and they're all having a great time in the pub.
It's
And
the
then
Irish way, is it
it
not?
is, yes. And then you see the end of the tour, and people are sad to leave, but they're swapping numbers and they're swapping emails.
I love
And
that.
then a week later, you're watching them communicate on Facebook. And, maybe 2 months later, you're watching them. I'm visiting you in Connecticut, or you're visiting me in Kentucky.
Right?
And it
Right.
is
I stand by meeting friends on travels. There are no strangers, just friends you haven't met yet.
absolutely. And that's exactly what happens. So if you're a lone traveler, don't worry about it. It'll only
Yeah.
take you about 5 minutes to be part of the group. And again, everybody is welcome, and bring your songs, bring your stories, bring your jokes. And we don't really mind if they're not that clean, do we, Courtney?
Oh, we don't at all. Actually, it's preferred.
Ah, yes, exactly. So Secret Ireland Tours LLC.com. What's your website for your tour company?
So you can go to seasideshadows.com and you'll see the Ireland tours on there as well. Or you see my name in the screen here. You can go to CourtneyMcInvale.com and find the information there.
And if anyone wants to buy any of your books, how can they do that, Courtney?
Best way is to go to CourtneyMcInvale.com. But if that's too much to remember and you just Google me, you're going to see Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all that fun stuff, and you can get it through there as well.
Perfect. You are such a fantastic person for giving me all this time. Thank you
Oh,
so
it's
much,
my
Courtney.
pleasure. It's so much fun.
Yeah, we're going to have a good time. So everybody get to Secret Ireland Tours and look at the tour and get your name down, or get your spot secured. It'll be the best thing,
Yes.
you know?
We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.